What's up everyone? Welcome to today's video. Welcome to the World Gadget 02 YouTube art channel. Thank you very much for tuning in. The other day I saw a comment on one of my videos. I can't track it down. I left the comment just to come back to it and respond to a video, but for some strange reason, there's no way to find this comment. It's based on some of my videos that I've been talking about, where I basically posited the claim that Game Pass right now is changing the industry, and there's no one who can actually be walking around that's not going to consider that this is actually something that is providing value for players. So what happened in this video? Somebody went ahead and asked me after everything and said, well, what's up with Square Enix? Why did they decide to go multi-platform, knowing that that's going to be less profitable for them? And I thought, okay, I think we need to talk about this in a video because I think that's a misconception when it comes to Square Enix's position and when it comes to what is going on with them. So Square Enix, for the most part, they've also been a proxy for PlayStation to basically do exclusivity deals with and be able to boost their platform. They've also been a proxy, in a sense, as well, for Xbox to also do or make the same decisions or take the very same approach. Now, when you actually take these two things into consideration, you've got to ask yourself and say, well, what was going on? Well, they were a company that had a bunch of games. They found a way that, oh, you know what, we're going to basically leverage these games that we have, and we're going to probably market them to the publishers directly. So maybe help us recoup our development costs. And this happened in one case that I know of with Tomb Raider, with Xbox, where money had it, the game. Xbox got a lot of flack for that. But in the case of PlayStation, PlayStation's money had it many Square Enix games. Even though Square Enix is a third-party publisher, and Square Enix is happy to take the money. I'm not saying, it's PlayStation's fault. Square Enix also, that is their own thing. So they were taking the money. They were enjoying themselves. There was no problem. Everybody was fine and dandy. Octopath Traveler 2 appeared somewhere, and Octopath Traveler 1 appeared somewhere. It's just been all over the place. Final Fantasy, this is going to appear on Xbox, and Final Fantasy, that does not appear. Final Fantasy 14 was here and there. So there was all this convolution going on. However, the gaming industry has been changing in the last few years, especially since 2020, when we had all that issue. The new consoles came out. They were held down by scalpers. Nobody was able to get any interest. Nobody was able to get any interest in the consoles, as they could not flow easily. So we've seen a real huge stop in terms of how gaming has flown in one direction. And now everything is different today. And Square Enix is no longer able to leverage these particular PlayStation consoles where PlayStation 4 had over 100 million units and was selling like hotcakes. Even the Switch also has about 100 million units as well. So now Square Enix is no longer in the position that they had. Sit there, take development money from Sony or take some kind of fee from Sony and also take sales from Sony at the same time. What has happened now is forcing them to rethink their strategy, which is we need to sell copies of games. That is exactly what third-party publishers should be prioritizing. I mean, look at From Software and look at Warner Brothers. Last year and 2 years back, those two publishers alone were able to drop a 25% rate. Those two publishers alone were able to drop a 25% rate. Deep sale in the case of Elden Ring was like $35. I don't remember seeing Elden Ring get lower than $35, $36. So the cake came in for From Software very heavily. In the case of Hogwarts Legacy did it, but they had to put it on the Switch. They put it on everything. From did it with only PS4, Xbox One, Series X, PS5, and PC. Hogwarts went all the way down to the Switch to be able to push that number, but they did it in 1 year. So Hogwarts is impressive and Elden Ring is also impressive. But third-party publishers, their goal is to push these sales of their units. And in order for you to be able to push 25 million copies or more for your game, or even 10 million copies, depending on how popular your game is, it may require that you take yourself to multi-platform. And that's exactly what you need to do. It may, and I think it may be. It may because Nintendo does it with ease, but Nintendo is Nintendo. So a lot of Square Enix's portfolio has holes in them. Especially when it comes down to the fact that if they want to try to appeal to people, say maybe on Steam, or maybe say on Xbox, there are holes in their portfolio offering. Because now, if you've missed out on all the Final Fantasy VIIs, why should you be interested in Final Fantasy XVI coming to Xbox or coming to PC? So now, not only have they been basically sitting on the PlayStation platform, they've lost the interest of other platforms as well, because they're not bringing their games there. And I know someone's going to make a comment saying, but Xbox gamers don't necessarily buy games, which is a very silly concern in my opinion. Because how do you know that who's told you that Xbox gamers don't buy games? I think this is just something that a lot of people like to go ahead and spew and talk nonsense of. Because at the end of the day, there is a platform of at least how many consoles has the Xbox X sold? Somewhere around, I don't know, 15, 20 million copies or so for Series X and Series X sales. So this is something that even though you're thinking in your minds, those of you who always say this nonsense, and there are people who say, I don't know why people come out and say stuff without that. Let's look at Series X's sales. Let's look at that. How many copies, how many 27 million units. So even if you have 27 possible customers, you have 27 possible customers, you have 27 possible customers gone ahead, and basically, lock yourself into a corner. You've gone ahead, pretty much, alienate a community that could be buying your game to probably a few million copies. I mean, Final Fantasy XVI, Final Fantasy VII, those games would have sold 3 million copies on Xbox. Squares would not have been a financial position that they were. And so when you think about it, you think about everything that happened after the release of Final Fantasy XVI on PlayStation. Square Enix comes out and says, our position is no longer as, competitively, financially, we're hurting. And that's just the reality now. It's not because of Final Fantasy XVI they were hurting, but they just did not have any measures to be able to bring in extra income. It's one thing for you to make a game, put it exclusively, timed, get your extra money and move on and sell it everywhere else, but you've got to have income coming in, and income did not come in from their other games. Should say Final Fantasy has sold so many copies of the game that possibly another 6-7 million copies in the case of releasing, different versions of Final Fantasy VII on other platforms. I think that would probably be better, but, it's just one of those things where it's their cake, so they have to basically eat it right now. And then they're basically, powering back again. Hey, we're going to come back to these other platforms. They're shaking hands. Some of the creators are shaking hands with Xbox because they see the importance of being able to move copies. Warner Brothers moved 2025 copies. 3 Square Enix was only able to measly almost 4 million copies of Final Fantasy XVI. That's bogus. That's BS. I'm sure they looked at it. They were like, what the heck? We made games that have bigger followings. Now this is how it was harder. But still, though, they have a good library that is very popular. They cannot crack 10 million on basically most of the major IPs, and they gotta basically start thinking differently because the gaming scene has changed. How is Legacy 2 is gonna eat? Another 25 million copy software is going to come. Another 25 million copies with their Elder follow-up. These games are monumental games, so you can't keep blocking Final Fantasy and expecting that people are going to go spend $500 to buy a PlayStation when you can just play Hogwarts, which is a fantasy RPG game where you can just play, which is a fantasy game. So that's actually interesting. And then you have Dragon's Dogma, which is also in that genre, and the competition in that genre. Square Enix